What up? This is the Too Tall Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Lauren. Hope everyone is having a great day today. Our episode is with Mike Hollis. He is a former NFL kicker. He was with the expansion at the time, Jacksonville Jaguars, and he played for them for about 7 years, and he went on to play with the Buffalo Bills, who he actually beat in the playoffs in a wild card game. So we talked to him about that. He's the first kicker I've had on. I haven't had that many NFL guys on, so luckily I was able to meet him through a networking group, and I got Mike Hollis on the show. He teaches a ProForm kicking academy down in Jacksonville as well, so he still lives in the area. But we talked to him about all things kicking, what it's like, the mindset, how to really teach, how to kick, like all the inside stuff about kicking. So it's a really cool episode. He played on some great teams in Jacksonville and played for Tom Coughlin also. So we talked to him about that. So yeah, great episode with Mike Hollis, former NFL kicker, and now he teaches at his own academy. As always, you can find the show at Too Tall Sports Podcast on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at Too Tall Sports. And if you want to watch the show, it's on YouTube. You can just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. Also on Spotify, Amazon Music, and of course, Apple Podcasts. If you could subscribe, rate, and review. And if you scroll down all the way and give me a 5-star, you can help out the show. So I really appreciate that. Enjoy the show today, and we will see you on the other side. Too Tall Sports Podcast. Let's get it. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a former All-Pro kicker in the NFL. He played 9 seasons in the league, and he spent most of his career with the Jacksonville Jaguars and for the Buffalo Bills, and a short stint with the Giants. He played his college ball at the University of Idaho and now coaches kickers at his ProForm Kicking Academy. And my first ever kicker on the show, his name is Mike Hollis. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, man, good to see you and be your first kicker. It's I told you earlier, it's gonna be a comedy show because I'm just like, man, I'm sure you got a lot of questions for kickers.
For sure, and just questions about the NFL in general. Like it's just good to have some former player on, so it's really cool. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to, before we get into your career and stuff, I want to just ask you about 2020 in general, like what it's been like for you and your family and just your business over this whole crazy year.
It hasn't been as bad. Me personally, I'm an anti-mask guy. I think there's a lot of fishy things going on right now, and I'm not going to get into all that stuff. But I'm telling you, it's just you look at the numbers now, and even after we've seen the deaths and we've seen all the stuff from COVID, and you look at the flu numbers, you're like, wait, we shut down the world for this, and again, it's just It's crazy. It's weird. I've with everything going on right now. Of course I'm 48 years old and I've never lived through any of this before. This is just nuts, in my opinion. And honestly, it didn't affect my business a whole lot. We were able still, because we do one-on-one private training as far as ProForm kicking is concerned. So we didn't have any issues. Other things that I'm involved in as well had a little bit of a setback, but nothing crazy. And I'm fortunate for that. There's obviously been a lot of people around the world really that have been devastated by this, and not only just with the virus itself and losing loved ones, but also with just the financial aspect of it as well, and just their overall well-being and just livelihoods.
So you've had your normal guys in there kicking and doing lessons and all that stuff?
For the most part, we don't do any group training, really, to be honest with you. So we stick with the private one-on-ones, and we kick inside of a indoor facility here in Jacksonville, right, Florida, and they had shut down for like 2.5-3 weeks. Well, they actually shut down for longer than that, but because we are a private one-on-one, we were able to get in and do some coaching, because it was back when the standards were set for COVID back then. Even that sort of mindset was okay. So we took advantage of that, and if the kids weren't too crazy, afraid or whatever of any issues that might come up, but none of our guys had any problems with it.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're still surviving, doing well. So yeah, I wanted to get to kind of your upbringing. I saw that you were born in Eastern Washington. Obviously, living in Jacksonville is a long way away from there, but I guess in your early childhood, were you always playing football, and like were you into other sports too? What was kind of your sports athletic upbringing?
I had a lot of friends in the neighborhood, and a lot of crazy friends in the neighborhood that would influence me doing some crazy stuff as well. But jumping off houses and jumping off cliffs, 100-foot cliff into the water, and just crazy stuff, right? So. And of course, sports was a big deal. We were always playing outside, always playing some sort of sport, football in the front yard. And, I honestly learned a lot of my tackling skills, because I actually had to use them a couple times, actually 11 officially, but 11 official tackles in the NFL. But I was able to, get my athletic ability up and kind of become an athlete back when I was a kid. And so that's I spent a lot of time playing sports, soccer, football. Never got into baseball or golf or anything like that so much, but soccer and football. And I wrestled a little bit when I was a kid, but those were kind of the soccer and football, the major sports that I played. And I'm very, very thankful for soccer in general as well, and football, because it made me it gave me the ability to be a kicker because of my soccer background. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It probably helped you, but I mean, I don't know how many people grow up thinking they're going to be a kicker at some point in their life. So did you know early on you were going to be a kicker, or did that just kind of evolve from playing soccer and then you got to high school and all that?
Yeah, it kind of did, and I was a very small guy. Clearly, I still am, but I'm talking about weight-wise. I was very, very tiny. I was only in 8th grade, I wrestled 82 pounds, and in 9th grade, I wrestled 107. So I remember those weights because of wrestling. But in middle school, we had lightweight and heavyweight. So I felt okay playing with the lightweight guys, because I wasn't going to get absolutely killed by the big guys. But in 9th grade, when it came to high school level, and even at that level in Spokane, Washington, we had junior high. So my junior high school system went from 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Then my high school system went from, technically, it went from 10th, 11th, and 12th. So when I went from, junior high, 9th grade to 10th grade, I had a stepbrother who had just graduated, I think maybe a year or two prior to that. From that same high school I was going to, and he said, "Hey man, are you gonna play soccer? I know you were, or football." He said, "Are you gonna, you kicked, at the junior high level, and you can play at high school." And I said, "Well, I don't think I can do that, because don't they want me to, play the positions?" And he said, "No, we got a kicker on the team right now that was just a kicker, and that's all he did." And I didn't think that was actually possible. So my brother Harvey had told me that, and I was like, "Wow, if he hadn't told me that, I really don't know if I would have played." But I enjoyed kicking in general, and maybe I would have figured it out one day. But I just, I was always the guy that took the penalty shots in soccer, and always had kind of a strong leg and had some control over where the kicks were going. And then I just applied that to football. And even back then, I still wasn't doing it right. I was just athletically just steering the ball. And nowadays, now that I'm teaching this stuff, I see a lot of the same kids doing the things that I did back in the day. And I got to let them know, hey, as much as good as it feels to kick the way you're doing, it's not the best way. Athletically, you're only going to get to a certain level if you keep doing it that way. I can get you at a higher level if you do it my way. So it's I really enjoy it. It's almost an addiction. When I was a kid, kicking became an addiction. I just love to go out and kick. And now, with coaching, it's such an honor and such a heartwarming feeling when you get a kid that finally gets it, and he's kicking really well, and then you see him going on in these colleges, and then we have some guys in the NFL. As a matter of fact, Sergio Castillo just played in with the Jets this last weekend, and he played 5 years in the Canadian League and 1 year in the XFL. But he's been, I'm not going to claim it as ours solely. He's worked with other coaches too, but he's a guy that flew into Jacksonville a number of occasions to work with us specifically, because he knows what we're teaching. He knows it works.
No, that's awesome. No, that's pretty cool to see now that you're on the other side of that. Yeah. When you're, even a senior in high school, and I know you went the junior college route, were you heavily recruited at all by anybody when you were kicking out of high school?
Not really, no. A quick story. Jason Hansen is from my hometown. We played soccer and football against each other. Jason is 2 years older than me, and he went on to Washington State on a 4-year, full ride scholarship, and of course, I had 2 more years to play high school football. But he had a brother by the name of Travis that was the same age as me. And you can probably figure out where I'm going with the story. Here I am, both Travis and I are seniors playing against each other in our same, Greater Spokane League is what it was called back then. And I statistically was better than him my senior year. And he goes on to University of Washington on a full ride scholarship, and I didn't get anything. I was, and again, I think I go back and think it was my size. It was guys passed up on me, and every level that I played at, I had to prove to them that it really did not matter, because they just apparently didn't think I can do what these big guys do. And it's now that I know more about kicking and see the world the way it is today with kicking. I understand that they have that impression that bigger guys, even if they miss it, it's still going to go far. Well, not necessarily the case. It might go far, but it's not going to go straight. I can promise you that.
So yeah, you're obviously, we're good enough to, you end up going to, I wanted to ask you about the junior college route. So how were those couple years there, and what did you learn as a kicker, and what kind of propelled you to go to the next level after that?
Well, it was kind of, I like the way it worked out, to be honest with you, because it was kind of a progression. It was better progression than me going from some small school in Spokane, Washington, like high school, to a big, huge university, with all the pressure, and maybe on a full ride scholarship. I'm sure, it does play a little role in guys who are not prepared for that pressure. And I see guys getting drafted even these days that don't play well because of the pressure. So the junior college route was for a couple reasons. One is I wanted to earn a scholarship. And, of all the, maybe the universities that I talked to, my senior year, maybe had an interest, they'd send a letter, a little questionnaire, and I'd send it back. Of those schools that had a little bit of an interest, they all were like, well, we got an opportunity, you can walk on, this and that, but we don't have scholarship available. So every one of the big schools I looked at, or at least had an interest in me, was all the same. Like, walk on, walk on, walk on, walk on. I'm like, no, I don't want to walk on. I did good. I did well, better than a lot of guys around the nation, of course.
Yeah.
But, and so I just wanted to, I didn't want my parents paying for my school. That was just a big pride thing for me. I wanted to earn my own scholarship and didn't want them to make them pay for anything, So, and then my grades weren't the greatest. So some of the schools that I was, talking with, they were, like even University of Washington was a little bit out of my league. So grade wise, I wasn't the best, but I still could have gotten into a lot of those schools, but I figured the 2-year route was great. And I'm glad I did. I was a blue chip All-American my freshman year. And the next year I did pretty good as well. But then you fast forward after my 2 years at Wenatchee Valley College, thinking, okay, well now these schools that passed on me 2 years ago, well, where are they at? What are they doing now?
Yeah.
Reach out to them, crickets, nothing. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So eventually, John L. Smith from the University of Idaho called me up and said, hey man, we got this guy in for Michigan State that's not really panning out like we thought. We want you to come in and earn, work out and kind of earn a scholarship. We have a scholarship available for either one of you if you decide to come in. And I like the program there. Obviously, they kick in a dome, so if you understand the weather back there in the wintertime, it's not pretty as far as the snow and a lot of wet conditions and just conditions at times too. But the dome was something that was a good selling point for me as well. But Montana had an interest in me, and I'm like, well, Montana outside, freezing cold weather, Idaho inside, nice warm climate dome. Closer to home too. So, again, University of Idaho is just about 75 miles about southeast from Spokane, just across the border. And actually, there's a little trivia. I don't know if you know this, but Washington State University is in a small town called Pullman, Washington. University of Idaho is in a small town called Moscow, Idaho. Those two little towns are 8 miles apart from each other.
Oh, so it's just on the border of over Washington. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that was kind of where I lived in Spokane. It was really, very close to the Idaho border as well. So I actually lived on campus, or close to campus, at Washington State University. My first year when I went to Idaho, I just drive 8 miles to work.
Oh, wow. Did you grow up, just curious, like a UW or Washington State fan? Were one of those your team?
Yeah, Washington State University, because it was so close.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends went there. Not I would probably say a quarter of the guys that are people that I knew that went off to colleges, maybe a quarter of them went to University of Washington, and the rest went to Washington State University. So plus it was, like I said, it was closer to home, and it's just you saw more of it on the TV, on the news, because it was closer. So
right. Okay.
A little bit partial then.
Yeah. And now you're at University of Idaho. So, I mean, I don't know much about the program there. So what was it like kicking there? Obviously, you're in the dome, which is great for you. And then, just as an experience at University of Idaho, how was that for you?
It was good. It was really good. We had a very, very strong team. We had guys like Doug Nussmeier, Jeff Robinson, Sheridan May, Yo Murphy, Spencer Fullow. These are all guys that played in the NFL. Matter of fact, our quarterback Doug Nussmeier was drafted to the Saints, played as a backup most of his, I think, pretty much all of his NFL career, which is probably 8 or 9 years long. Then after he finished up his football career, he began coaching, and so he started off, I think, at like maybe Fresno State or somewhere, kind of bounced around some of the smaller ones. But eventually got on with Alabama. He was the offensive coordinator for the University of Alabama for many of their successful seasons years ago. Then from Alabama, he went on to University of Florida down in Gainesville, right down the road from here, from Jacksonville. So, and now Doug Nussmeier, I think, is the quarterbacks coach for the Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys. So we had a lot of very talented guys on that team. We were beating teams. I think we beat Lehigh like 77-16 or something. And I was, as a kicker, I was kind of tired after that game.
That's a lot of kicks.
Yeah, I had 11 kickoffs or 12 kickoffs, whatever. But yeah, we had a very successful team. We were very, very high-powered offense. We scored lots of points. We did really well. We had a lot of recognition, and that was partly why I kind of got noticed, because scouts would come and watch all these other guys. Eddie Howard was a punter we had that did really well, got onto like 6 different NFL teams, but never really quite made it. But we had scouts coming in and look at those guys all the time, and I told them, I said, listen, if those scouts are coming in to look at you, let me know, because I'm going to be on the other end of the field kicking, so they notice me too. And that's actually how it worked out with the Jaguars. Scout came in to watch Eddie Howard one day, and I was on the other end of the field kicking. So got that opportunity from that.
So I saw, I think you were with San Diego first, right? And then, but you didn't play for them?
Yeah, well, I was a camp kicker. So I came in 94. That was my first team, officially, I guess, but unofficially, because I never made the opening season roster. They had John Carney there. So I knew it was an opportunity, and after the draft came and went, I was able to go work out for the Atlanta Falcons, and they flew me to Atlanta, and me and 4 other guys, Todd Peterson being one of them. That's the guy they kept. But I worked out for them, and then the next week, I got a call from John L. Smith, said, hey, the Chargers really like you. They want to bring you down. So I was able to, go down to there and earn, at least a camp position as a camp kicker, essentially. And I knew, John Carney had already had like 4 or 5 years there at the time, so I knew I wouldn't beat him out. But I almost did. And then, that year he actually went on to the Pro Bowl for the Chargers that year. And so, if you ask him, if he was sitting right here right now, he'd say, yeah, I'm thanking you, Mike, because you pushed me so hard in that training camp. It made me a better kicker. So John's a great dude, by the way.
Nice.
But yeah, so yeah, I was with the Chargers then, and then long story, between then and getting to Jacksonville was kind of odd. I was told by Bobby Beathard, the general manager for the Chargers, and my agent at the time, don't enroll in classes, because what was the NFL Europe, it was actually called the World League. The World League was coming back again, and they said, okay, we're going to enter you in the draft, and you're going to get drafted. You've done really well, and even a guy like Bobby Beathard, who's a legend in the NFL industry as far as general managers and player personnel kind of guy. Coming from him, I thought, great, I'll get drafted, and this will be awesome. I'll go overseas somewhere and play, and this is great. Draft came and went. Once again, got overlooked, and I clearly overlooked, because I'm sure, I guess, didn't get that opportunity. And but actually, it was actually better, because I got other opportunities from scouts that came through to look at some other guys, and me as well. I did go back to Idaho. I finished off my degree there, and I was able to work out for the Giants. Joe DeCamillis, who's actually, ironically, he's the special teams coach here in Jacksonville right now, but he was the special teams coach for the Giants then, who worked me out back in 94. I guess it was 94, 95, somewhere in there. But so that never happened, and it was good. I had time to get better as a kicker, and got an opportunity to play, to come on with the Jaguars. And the Chargers wanted me to come back again in 95, and I'm like, well, hey, I do actually have an opportunity possibly with the Jaguars. So Bobby Beathard was kind enough to give me, some time to let see what the Jaguars were going to do. And even then the Jaguars were kind of dragging their feet, and they actually wanted to see me work out in person because I actually had two workouts with the Jaguars. But Tom Coughlin, everyone at the Jaguar staff said, we really like your film. Your workout was great, but Tom Coughlin thinks you're too short, and he's going to go with a bigger guy. And I was like, what the heck? I have a personal kicking coach who's actually my business partner in ProForm kicking here in Jacksonville. His name is Jim Gaetano, and he's like the kicking guru of all gurus. May not be very well known. We have a different philosophy, which some kids don't understand, and that's why they're like, it doesn't seem right for me. I don't want to do it. But again, I know how it works, and at kicking 5'8", 180 pounds, and I play doing things that guys at 6'3", 220 pounds were doing. I promise you my stuff works. Anyways, long story short, Jim got on the phone with them after I told him that they thought I was too short, and he basically laid into him and said, listen, you guys have no clue what you're doing. You have no idea. Mike kicks like he's 6'2". Why would it matter if he really is, or really isn't, So that actually worked. It got them to open up their eyes, and that was the ability to get me the first workout. Then I had to, pull some more strings to get the second workout, but eventually did. So the rest is history. I
because Jacksonville had that. Their expansion team. Who knows what this team's going to look like, and you're all of a sudden the kicker, and so you're the guy. You've had this chip on your shoulder. It sounds like I didn't know all this. You got passed up so many times, but man, you earned it. And you got there. So what was that first season like in the NFL with Jacksonville?
It was electrifying because Jacksonville worked really, really super hard to get that team. And, it's a football city to begin with because, big, Florida, Georgia, Gators fans and Florida State fans. And it's a college football town. Now the Jaguars here, it's gotten much better, of course, but it was electrifying, as a new franchise. And, our first year we were 4-12, so it was kind of interesting. But in another trivia, if you ever been asked this question, of who scored the very first points in Jacksonville Jaguar franchise history, that was me.
Nice.
With a short field goal, but it was cool. It was really really cool looking back and seeing this city, build and grow so quickly. And when I came here, it wasn't a real big city, and it was just kind of awkward. I'd never been to Florida before. Flying in, I'm looking for palm trees, and I see a bunch of pine trees. I'm like, what? Am I in Florida? There's no way. But
Central Florida.
Yeah, it's kind of it's
or it's like east. Yeah.
Yeah, we're northeast Florida, so we're kind of up by South Georgia basically. So there's a lot of pine trees around here, but clearly there's beaches and there's palm trees. But it was cool. It was awesome to be a part of something so unique, and the city just fell in love with the Jaguars. Of course, we started doing really well. 96, 97, 98, 99. We're just kicking everybody's butt, and for the most part, and the city just fell in love with us even more. And it's unfortunate we're not there again, but hopefully the Jaguars will snap out of it and get back up there one of these days.
So I used to play minor league baseball. I played at that AA stadium right next to the Jags stadium. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're called the Jumbo Shrimp now. I don't know if you know that or not.
They were the Jacksonville Suns, yes.
Jacksonville Suns, yeah.
No, it's a decent ballpark. It's right next. We actually saw a preseason game there at the Jaguar Stadium because we were ending our season and you guys were there. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah. I did want to talk about the 96 season. You guys go on a magical run. You make the playoffs. And part of it was, you guys, including you, beat Buffalo in a wild card game. And you were a big part of that. I wanted to ask you about the atmosphere there, your first playoff game. What was it like kicking in Buffalo and just the whole experience?
It was cold.
I bet.
It was windy. Typical Buffalo weather in January, but it was very exciting. I remember my first field goal in that game, and yet for me as a kicker, I tried really hard, which I think after that game I got a lot better. I don't know why I was so nervous during that game, but I try to treat any game like it's there's not like there's no consequence, but if I put a high consequence i.e., missing kicks and losing, then I will put more pressure on myself, and I'll do things differently if I'm not careful, right? So I really tried my best to dumb it down and just say, okay, this is just another game. I'm just going to do. There's nothing different that I have to do. And you have to forget about the consequence. You have to forget about the end result. You cannot worry about that and that's the way I, think about field goals too, ironically. But
yeah.
That first field goal was like a 27-yard or some short one, right? And I remember that was probably the only kick that I remember my legs literally shaking as I'm waiting for the snap. And it was really bizarre. It wasn't because I was cold. It was because I was nervous. I was a nervous wreck. But I hit it good. Then that last field goal I had, that 45-yarder, that was a crazy kick because that might have been one of the best kicks I've ever had in my life. I absolutely, with any sport really, baseball, golf, whatever, if you hit a baseball and when you hit it, the second you hit it, this one's out of the park. Yeah. Same sort of thing with me. When I hit it, I'm like, oh, and I look up and I'm watching this ball go right down the middle. And then all of a sudden somebody from the outside came in really late, some Buffalo Bill, of course, and totally wiped me out, right? So nobody knows about that because it was never shown on TV, but there should have been a flag, but it really didn't matter because, we made the field goal. But I was knocked down. I'm looking at the ball, and the next thing I'm looking at the sky. And then Brian Barker, my holder, comes up and, puts his hand down to help me up. He goes, dude, it went through. Like, he was surprised. He gave me that surprised look. I'm like, what do you mean, bro? It was going right down the middle. He says, watch the Jumbotron. I watch it, and that thing was right down the middle, and it takes a sharp right. And literally hit the very top of the upright from 45 yards. That's why I'm saying it was a pretty good hit. And the wind had changed directions in the second half. And Brian actually put a little bit of a lean on the ball, which he remembers. He's like, oh, I forgot the wind had changed. So thank God we made that kick, because he would have felt really bad if it would have really pushed off to the right and hit the pole and bounced back or missed it, because he felt it was his fault because of the lean. But I don't know if it was really that or not, but it was just crazy. As a right-footed kicker, to see the ball shoot off to the right, it's pretty impressive with regards to the wind. Or if you're cutting the ball as a wedge guy, and I go into detail, but I won't.
No, yeah, because I have a lot of questions. Because I kind of look at it when I see the ball flight of a kick. It's kind of like in golf, if you're going to hit a draw or a fade or whatever. Is that really more on the holder, or is that on the way you come through the zone? Like, what determines that?
Well, I think it's more on the kicker himself. There's a lot of different ways guys actually make contact with the football, and some guys actually have a natural draw, and that's what coaches, they don't want to see anything that they're going to have to worry about having a negative effect. If you got a kicker with a draw, constant draw, then what happens when you get into wind that's blowing from the right-footed kicker from his right to left? If he has a little bit of a draw, that ball is going to end up in the sidelines, So, and then some guys who, like I was saying before, they wedge it and they come across it and basically add like what we'd consider a slice in golf. And that's exactly what happens. Yes, even though the ball's rotating like this, there is a turn within the ball itself as it's spinning like this, and it will definitely slice off. I've seen two guys, and they ironically both have very, very similar forms and technique. Todd Peterson, who I mentioned earlier, and also Lindo Mare, they're very narrow kickers. So they have to open up their foot when they kick the ball, because if they keep their foot closed or more forward, it will yank way left. So that's just their style. That's how they kicked and how they did it. But I've seen both of those guys attempt game-winning field goals. I think it might have been the same exact year. This was years ago, of course, but yeah. They were kicking in domes, and they both sliced the ball. There's no wind. So clearly it's not the wind that did it. It's the way they kicked. So again, and even guys like Justin Tucker, he can do that same thing too. He plants like this close to the ball, and I have no idea how he does it, but he does it. He's an incredible athlete. So he's got that incredible ability to kick the ball very far and very straight. But sometimes I've seen him miss balls to the right, and he's looking at the ball like, well, how did that happen? Well, I know how it happened. I mean, you had to open up your foot somehow. And again, I can go on and on and on.
Sure. Well, I was curious about because sometimes you have to kick from different hash marks. So do you change your style depending, or you just line up differently to account for the way you kick?
You always kick the ball straight, and this is what I tell kids too. When you line up on the left hash, you basically do what you 3 back and 2 over, but you got to make sure that you're 90 degrees from here. If I'm kicking over here, it's always 90 degrees. If I'm kicking over here, it's going to be 90 degrees. So it's always 90 degrees. So I ask kickers, so I'll put him on the left hash, and I say, okay, what direction are you kicking the ball right now? And he goes, well, I'm kicking it to the right. I said, not really. You're kicking it straight because you lined up straight, not because you're trying to make it go right. You're trying to make it go straight. So that's the luxury of a kicker. There's a bunch of them, actually. A luxury of a kicker, a couple of them right off the bat, is the fact that we don't have to kick the ball differently based on how far we are from the field goal. Yes, within reason. Yes, if you're at 60 yards, you have a tendency to maybe add a little bit of muscle to it, but you don't really want to because then you get out of control and all that. So, but the thing is, you don't get penalized if the ball goes too far through the uprights, right? All it has to do is go through the pipes and over the product. You don't get penalized if an extra point goes 60 yards, right? So you don't have to work on different kinds of kicks based on how far you are, but also the same thing is you don't have to work on a different kick based on what hash you're on. It's always the same kick. So that's another good point that a lot of kids sometimes they don't understand.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to so then the following week that you played Denver and you guys beat them as well, and I think you had some kicks in that game too. So what was the difference between the Buffalo game and then you guys go to Denver and beat them also?
Well, it was kind of just an extension of the the underdogness, if that's a word. We were underdogs going into Buffalo, and then that was a fluke, and then we go to Denver. Oh, you guys are clearly going to lose. They're 14-2. There's no way that we're going to win. Who was that reporter that called us the Jaguars? I can't remember the dude's name, but he called us the Jaguars.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, it was all about that, and we clearly were not expected to win that game, and it's a playoff game, and I know that John Elway didn't tell his team, we could just chill. It's just the Jaguars. I know they're playing to win. It's the NFL. You can't take any team lightly, and I think they were just a little caught off guard about how good we were making plays. Like Mark Brunell, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardle, all those guys. Natron Means just running all over them guys. So. We had solid players, and we had some great plays. We didn't make mental errors as much, and I think the Broncos did. I think one of the problems that we had an opportunity to throw a touchdown late in the game was because one of their defenders didn't get off the field in time, so they had 12 men on the field, which gave us a first down. And then we were able to score off that drive. And I think that was kind of the winning points. And again, I think I kicked 3 field goals in that game. And I think the scores in the Buffalo game and then the Broncos game were identical. It was 27-30. And I scored three field goals, hit 3 field goals. So again, very intense. I had family members at that game. They were telling me that they were selling shirts that were like Broncos to the Super Bowl shirts. They had all this apparel and all this stuff. They were tearing the Jaguars down. I won't get into the vulgars, but you know where I'm going with this. They're talking all kinds of names, and of course I was married at the time. My wife was at the game. Of course she has no filter, so she'll talk to anybody as far as don't you offend my husband, and they're. Could have been maybe a fight or two. I don't know, but no, there wasn't. But it was a crazy game. We definitely were not expected to win that game.
So as far as like the, I guess kicking in Denver, speaking of like the altitude, how do you adjust to kicking in that weather or that kind of condition?
I don't adjust at all. Okay. Not one bit. As a matter of fact, it's an advantage really. One thing I did notice about Denver is that the field was a little soft. So it's kind of like you don't want to put too much effort into the kicks because you might slip. So it kind of is a little bit of a wash, if you understand that. But yes, the ball does travel a little bit further, maybe 5 yards. Some guys, it's going to go 15. No. Yeah. About 5, for me at least, maybe some other guys kicked a little bit further in Denver than I did. But, Jason Elam had that at the time. It was the record 63-yard field goal. That was good stuff in Denver. Yeah. So I saw that firsthand. It was pretty cool.
So you guys got to beat John Elway, Mike Shanahan, Terrell Davis, all those dudes in Denver. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely an exciting game. And one thing that I'll never forget about that game, actually it was after the game, but when we flew home to Jacksonville, of course, they were showing that game in our stadium for fans who wanted to be there. And of course it was maybe a 4:00 game on a Saturday or whatever. But by the time we got into Jacksonville, the pilot got on the thing, so we're in the air, and he said, "Hey guys, just want to let you know we've been cleared for a flyover of the stadium. You guys on the left-hand side, go out and peek out your windows as we fly by." And I'm not kidding you. You can literally see the people down there just doing the lights. Of course, there was like 30,000 people there in the stadium. And this was like at 2:00 in the morning. And not only did they stay for that, they stayed and waited for us to get on the ground, drive all the way, get in our cars, drive all the way from the airport to the stadium where all the rest of the cars were essentially. But then at that point, we get out of there and we get into the stadium, and they've got microphones, they got speakers and all that set up for all of us to be out there and high five all the fans. It was absolute craziness. I still got goosebumps every time I think about it or talk about it. It's just that flyover was something I'll never forget.
And for fans to be there that many hours after the game was over, like why are you still there?
Crazy fans. Yeah. Crazy fans.
I know. It's like when Jacksonville's going good, you can tell they're really into it, the whole Duval thing. Like they're all about it. But, like you said, hopefully they get back to that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. I want to go back and kind of more into your mindset when you're kicking, kind of in big moments and your preparation and all that stuff. Is there something you do in practice, right? Yeah, the good stuff. What's it like on the sideline when you're kicking into the net or you're getting ready for it? Possibly, the game could come down to you. What's that like? Well,
again, dumbing it down is as simple as it sounds, but it's hard to do, to be honest with you. It's with kickers, it's routine. There's a lot to do with routine. You want to do what's normal. So as the ball comes across, we're on offense. Once it crosses the 50, I'm getting ready. I might kind of stretch a little bit. I didn't want to kick like a million footballs into the net, so I kicked a few, 2 or 3. But I'm always watching the big screen to see what yard line we're on and what down in distance it is clearly. So once it's third down and I get done with my kicks, I walk up to the coach and I'm standing next to coach, ready for that call. And again, as soon as it's called, coach, Coughlin says field goal. You run out there and you just. And mentally, it's really it comes down to really not overthinking and doing. In other words, don't second guess yourself. And I actually learned that, from Larry Pasquale, who was our special teams coach, who would tell me in games sometimes early in my career, maybe my first year or two, Mike, you're second guessing yourself. Stop doing that. And he's right. He was absolutely right. And Brian Barker, who took me under his wing, he was a veteran punter and my holder clearly. He told me one time, he said, hey man, on game day, don't think you have to do any more on game day than you do in any day of practice. Nothing's different. It's everything is the same. The field's the same. The goalposts are the same. They might look a little different. The field looks a little different because it's in a stadium. Yes, there's people around you now, but everything that we do on the practice field, all the whole mechanics, everything about it, there's nothing that you need to do differently. And that translates into, the end result or the consequence. If the consequence of me making or missing a kick has to do with me losing the game or winning the game, I don't want to think about that at all. I just do my thing, and nothing changes. Nothing changes at all.
No, I totally get that. And that's, pretty much with all sports, right? It's the same game no matter where you are. It's just there's different things, distractions, but everything else inside the line, so they say, is the same. So
right.
I totally get that. I wanted to ask you about just I'm sure you've gotten iced by a timeout by another coach, when you're kicking. What's that like, and how do you handle coaches doing that, or even your own coach doing weird stuff before you got to go out there? How do you stay in the moment there and still keep your composure?
Well, again, that goes right back to that routine I was just talking about. And some kickers don't. I'm sure there's a lot that don't do this or don't really know or don't even think about doing this, but I did what – I want to stay in the routine. So if I get on the field and, what really sucks is if I'm expecting a timeout and they don't call a timeout, because if I'm expecting a timeout, then I'm just kind of waiting and like chilling and, oh no, the ball just got snapped. Uh-oh. That's only happened a couple times in my career, but but the cool thing is, if they do call timeout, some kickers, most of them, I would assume, would stay on the field, gauge the wind, make sure their spot's okay, especially if you're playing on grass, look around, see if there's any obstacles like clumps of grass anywhere, dirt or whatever. I didn't do that. I went right back off the field and I told my coach, I said, listen, I want you to call field goal again when you think the time is right. And I'm on the sideline. If I want a kick or two, maybe my kick before in the net, before I went on to attempt the first one, maybe I wasn't happy with that. So I'll go back off the field and I'll try just one more. And then I'll maybe take a little sip of water and have my helmet off and then, put my helmet. Again, it's just back to the normal routine. Act like that timeout never happened. The thing that bothers me the most about the timeouts is the fact that it ruins that routine. And when you think you're about to kick the ball, then they call the timeout. Then you have to start that whole thing again. You kind of want, as a kicker, me in my personal, I guess, my opinion. You want to get it over with. Once they call field goal, you want to get out there, get your job done, and get back out of the field, make the kick clearly, but get your tee to kick off. And again, it's a routine. So that was the only thing. It just kind of ruined the routine, and I understand why they do it. It does mess with you a little bit, but if you're okay with that whole pausing of the routine, essentially, is what boils down in my mind is just pausing. It's just a pause for that routine to happen.
Sometimes you get lucky and it gets snapped and you get to kick it. Do you prefer that, where even though it doesn't count, you get a good look at one though from that distance?
Another thing that Brian Barker had told me, he's like, hey, if you ever get a snap in a game, just go ahead and kick it. It's a practice kick. Engage the wind, see how it is. And if the ball was snapped and if Brian put the ball down, more than likely I would kick it. Not very often did I ever have to do that. Sometimes if the whistle was blown before the ball was even snapped, then clearly I won't be able to kick it. But there were times, but not very many.
Okay. 1997 was your best year, I think, statistically. I saw 86% of your kicks that year. You're a Pro Bowler. What do you think? Everything just clicked for you then, or you were comfortable with Brian, your holder, or just what was it about that year that you were so successful?
Probably a lot of stuff. I was one of the years. I mean, the year before I finished 30 of 36 on field goals, and that year I actually finished 31 of 36, so one kick better. But the 2 years kind of blended, and again, I'm talking about routine. You're on a team that's getting inside, the 30 and 20 and inside the red zone all of the time. I know I'm kicking field goals, whether it's going to be a field goal or an extra point. That was the Jaguars. I had literally 61 opportunities in 2 years. That's pretty impressive.
That's a lot.
Just to have the opportunities. So I knew, going in every game, I said, well, I could have 5 field goals again today. I don't know, but it's just a matter of just, doing the routine and just taking care of the situation at hand, really. And, it's my job, and I love when I get in a routine and I'm kicking well during the games. Those are so fun. On contrast, there's games where I wasn't kicking so good, and I'm just literally, and I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking Fred Taylor, stay in bounds. Nate's on me. Big Nate, stay in bounds, brother. Run that clock. Honest to God, I'm very transparent. I'm like, I'm not kicking all today. Just get this game over with. Let's go home.
No, I appreciate that. That is honesty. And look, if you don't feel good, you don't want to be out there, right? And kicking can be a lonely position. So I've seen that for sure. I did want to ask you about some of your teammates too. You mentioned Mark Brunell, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Nate Means, Fred Taylor, all those guys. What was it like as far as the locker room goes, being on that team? Tom Coughlin's your coach. Like, you had a lot of talent there. So what was that like for you?
Well, it was twofold because Tom was kind of the disciplinary guy, clearly, as we all know, and whether you're winning or losing, there's always this uptightness with Tom because he didn't want you to get complacent if you were winning, and clearly if you're losing, he's going to be upset, and we all are. But with the players, it was so cool. The locker room we had. And I'll go back to Tom again real quick. Tom was very, very good. Tom Coughlin was extremely good at finding very humble team athletes. He found guys with good heads on their shoulders, guys that wanted to win, unselfish, just overall great people. And he would pass on talent for a guy who was close to as talented as maybe someone he passed on, but had a way better head than that person that they passed on. So I'll give that, Tom 100% of the credit of that because he got a lot of great guys in our locker room. And with that brings, camaraderie and accountability and, never letting the other guy down sort of attitude. And it was just a friendship. Didn't matter. There were some little cliques here and there, but we were all great friends. Every teammate in that locker room were all great guys. And you see guys like Brant Boyer, who is now the special teams coach for the Jets. He was one of the main characters, and I'm talking characters in a funny way. In the locker room, it was just comical. We, as kickers, Brian Barker and I, we had plenty of time on our hands to mess with guys while they're in meetings or while they're in the field or, whatever. And, we would put, clothes in water and put them in the freezer in an ice bucket and ice thing. And so, these are clothes they're wearing, after work. Or we would get the trainers to cast up their car keys or whatever. And the only way they can get their keys is actually get the casting thing to undo it. And I mean, we had all kinds of time on our hands, but again, it was just we had a lot of good leaders too. By the way, Jeff Loggeman is a guy that I would single out as a leader in the locker room. Who, there was times when things weren't so great, and we would have a team meeting with the coaches and everybody there, but Jeff would talk to Coughlin prior to the team meeting, say, hey, after our team meeting, we're going to have a players-only team meeting. And Tom was cool with that. He didn't mind that at all. I think he actually liked it because when Tom left and we could all kind of like share our concerns and we all laid it out on the table. And, Tom had his own rules and things, and sometimes they were very difficult to deal with. And that's what we had to tell ourselves. Listen, Tom's a coach. He's the boss. He's controlling us in a way that, he wants us to play and how we're playing, what we're doing on the field, and but we're the team. So if we're gonna win, we're gonna win for Tom, the city, and all that, but we're gonna win for us. We became very close in that regard.
And you were there for a lot of years, what, 6-7 years almost?
7.
Do you think you had a team that was good enough to win a Super Bowl at one of those years?
Absolutely, our '99 season team, yeah, of course, and those pesky. Titans, I can't even say the name, but Tennessee Titans, yeah, they beat us 3 times that year. We were 14-2 regular season. The 2 losses were Tennessee Titans, and then we ended up 15-3 or whatever it was because we had that bye week, and then we beat. That's another team. Look at this is kind of off note, but Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, wasn't necessarily John Elway, but Dan Marino and Jim Kelly, we actually were the last team they ever played. And so, we put those guys into retirement essentially. And it was pretty cool to say that, but yeah, it was good stuff. It was good times. That team was incredible. We had such good talent. And that was our Super Bowl run. And if you remember back after that season, that's when we had to start getting rid of high-paid guys. And another year later, 2 years later, I think I was a kind of, I guess, a salary cap casualty. Because they couldn't afford to keep a lot of guys on the team because their salary cap had gotten so high because of that run. We were trying to really get a lot of guys that we want on the team and really push that Super Bowl. And unfortunately, it didn't happen, but we were all hoping.
Yeah, and then you end up going to Buffalo, actually, the team you had beaten a few years back in the playoffs. What was it like to finally leave Jacksonville, number one, but then also play for, the Bills Mafia? What was that like?
Well, I had to answer a lot of questions, from a lot of fans. Like, hey, why did you make that field goal to put us out of the playoffs that one year? I'm like, I don't know. Because I had to. I mean, I would get killed.
Yeah.
But no, they respected my answers. They respected what I did, and well, I'm just glad you're on our team now. I'm like, yeah, me too. So it was a fun season. It was that was when Drew Bledsoe came. So that was a lot of hype there because Drew Bledsoe's coming in, and the Bills are going to make this huge push. And I can't remember what our record was. We were probably 8-8 or somewhere in there, but we weren't great. And I had a decent year, but not the greatest in my career either. But it's a tough place to play, and the fans are awesome in a way that they're kind of nuts, but they're awesome. After the games, we would go into these campers and trailers and stuff because it's windy and cold, and no one wants to post-game party, outside when it's windy like that and cold. So just a little different. Just things in general were different, but again, just great organization, great people, and I'll never regret going to Buffalo. It was fun.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you on a side note, who do you think has the best fans in the league outside of Jacksonville? We'll leave them out of it.
Well, I mean, I would have to say just based on the teams that I've played against, and how many of those fans travel, not per se realistically travel, but their fans are always coming to these games, and the Green Bay Packer fans are always at games, whether they're coming from Green Bay or in the city you're at. Raiders fans are crazy. They're nuts. Bills fans are close to that. Jets fans are rude. They're mean. But a lot of them kind of are. Sure. They can be. But I would say the most loyal will probably be Green Bay. The Green Bay fans are probably the most loyal fans that I've been around.
Yeah, definitely. As far as I saw you went to New York. You were going to play for the Giants. Was Tom Coughlin there yet?
No, I was there. I had signed a 5-year deal in 2003, and Jim Fossil's last year was 2003, and that was my only year there. I was on injured reserve, so that first year I got hurt in preseason and had my third and eventually fourth back surgery. And so I was on IR that whole year. And after that season is when, of course, they didn't do real well. And after that season is when they fired Fossil and picked up Tom. And, Tom kind of more or less let me go here in Jacksonville. So I knew that, him coming in, even though as much as he wanted to paint a pretty picture about getting me healthy and getting me back out there and kicking again, and which I was at the time when he was, brought on, that lasted a couple weeks. And I kind of knew that it was going to happen. And, it's okay. I have no hard feelings. I get it. I understand, I've kind of, gotten as much out of me as I think that maybe he thought I could, but I retired after that. So, it is what it is. It's business, and I get it.
No, I totally understand that. So I didn't know you had a 5-year contract, but you had the back surgeries and you just couldn't. So mentally, you said you were okay with it, and just physically, you just couldn't do it.
Well, at the time it was because I had surgeries prior to coming to New York with the Giants. I got injured in preseason, which caused a third back surgery. Then I actually got a staph infection from that surgery in my spine, and then I had to have another one like a week later, and then I go through all this 6 weeks of very, very intensive treatment, of course, but I had pretty extensive staph infection. It was pretty bad, but got through that, no big deal. But of course, I did all my therapy, and I was kicking again. I was kicking 50 plus, later in the season as it rolled on, and again, I'm very adamant about trying to stay young and healthy and in shape, and even now I think I can still kick really well. I demonstrate all the time for my guys, and I think it's just like, for me, it's like riding a bike. I'm never going to forget it, clearly, because I'm coaching it, but I can honestly say I think I know more now about kicking. I think I'm probably, if I was 10, 15 years younger, I think I'd be even better of a kicker now, knowing what I know now than I did back then even.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely much more wiser now, and you're teaching it, so you get to be around it still every day, which is great. Before we get to what you're doing now, I just wanted to ask, from 2003, 2004, did you go right into coaching, or what did you start doing after you retired?
I took some time off. I say I took some time off. I was retired for like 3 months, and I found myself just sitting around the house. I just moved in a new house back in Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra, and it was a brand new house, and I had all these little honeydews to do, all these little things that we wanted to get, that lights under the staircase and just fences around. And so I had my little checklist, and I got to a point where I've got everything scratched off, and then I was like, all right, what do I do now? And then, and to be honest, in all honesty, it's been a challenge for a lot of guys. What do you do when you retire? And I think the longer you play, the less opportunity you have, because the longer you're out of whatever field it was you studied, not to mention the fact that your credentials and your degree and all that, it kind of becomes a little bit obsolete after 9, 10, 11, these guys playing, clearly if you're playing 15, 20 years, you're probably financially set. Well, as a kicker, especially my first 3 years, I was on minimum wage salary, call it what it is. It wasn't nearly what they're getting now, but for my first 3 years of my NFL career, and I played, 9 years total. So 3 of those years were pretty low salaries. So I didn't make the millions that everyone is making now, for the most part. It played for 9 years or 9 years of credited seasons. But so, it's tough to figure out what you want to do. And I honestly didn't know. I had some guys that were in the financial industry and were able to, get me on and, trying to sell, investments. And I'm the worst salesman ever. I don't want, it's not that I'm terrible at it. If I find something I'm passionate about, I just want to share that information with you. But in a way that you want to, if you want some of that information, you want some of that product, whatever it might be, but I'm not going to try to sell anything. I'm not that kind of person, but so again, I didn't know what I was going to, and I got involved in a franchise called, I sold it on eBay. It was eBay drop-off store. Remember the 40-year-old virgin? Remember the scene in there? She's the eBay drop-off lady across the street. And
we sell your stuff on eBay. Yeah.
You sell your stuff on eBay, and it was a franchise, and at the time, it was one of the top 10 fastest growing franchises in the nation. And so I was like, me and another buddy got involved, and it didn't quite pan out. Maybe 2.5 years later, I was like, yeah, I can't hang on to these. I had 2 stores and just couldn't hold on to them anymore, and had to switch gears again. And that's when actually in 2007 was when I opened up my kicking academy.
Oh, okay. So you've been doing it for a long time now.
Yeah, 14 years now.
That's great. I wanted to ask you about just a random question, but like, what do you teach how to do the onside kick? Like, how do you perfect the onside kick?
Well, which one? I mean, there's tons of different kinds of kicks you can do.
Or which one do you prefer to teach? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we used to. It depends on what league you're in, because you can't do the pop-up in high school. You cannot do it in the NFL. You can't even do it in college. The only pop-up you can do is in the arena league. That's the one that hits the ground and pops straight up. I was pretty good at that one. I was one of the first guys that did that. But and again, it's if you're doing a traditional end-over-end onside kick, and I tell everyone this: if there's anyone out there, any kicker out there that says I can make it bounce in 2 hops, it's going to bounce up in the air every single time, they're flat out lying to you. Don't even buy that. It's not. It is such luck. It really is. Now there might be some rhythm to it and all that, and some power, just the way you're kicking as far as how hard or how soft you're hitting those. But the onside kick is more of an athletic sort of control kick. And again, it depends on which kind you're going to do. The one that I can't remember who did it, but it was against the Falcons. I do that almost every day. I hit the side of the ball and have it kind of spin and roll back to where the kickers are, right? Because we kick indoors, and it just does that on the turf, and it stops right there where the guys are teeing up the ball, and I can get pretty good at it. And it's I don't want to say it's hard to do, but it's interesting. But I couldn't believe that the Falcons actually let that happen.
Oh, you're talking about the Dallas game? Yeah.
Yes, Cowboys and Falcons, and I cannot believe that they didn't know the rule about how that ball did not, for them at least, did not have to travel 10 yards. They could jump on that ball any time, and they just waited and waited and waited, and then they lost. I'm like, wow, in the world.
Another random question. Did you ever punt in your career?
I punted in high school, and of course, as a kicker, you're always going to be the backup punter. One year here in Jacksonville, I can't remember who we were playing. It might have been Pittsburgh, or maybe it was – actually, I think it was Pittsburgh was the game after. Brian Barker got hurt in a game, the game prior to our Pittsburgh game, and he had broken like 3 ribs. He got involved in a tackle and took a knee right in his ribs, and so he had 3 cracked ribs, and they just they shot him up, and he played. But that whole week of preparation going into the Pittsburgh game, I was the punter, and I just nobody said anything to me. They just said, I'm just going to take up the reps, and Brian still hadn't kicked. Friday's rolling around, and Brian still hadn't kicked. I'm like, could I have to punt this game? I don't even know, because it really was a game time thing, but they were going to, give Brian some medications and try to numb it as much as they could, which they did, and Brian played. But I swear I thought I was going to play. I thought I was going to punt too, and that was I was nervous. Yeah, flat out honest with you, I was nervous because I'm not the best punter. I can catch the ball and kick it, but I'm not sure how pretty it's going to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was just curious. And I finally wanted to ask you about who do you think the best kicker of all time is?
Well, the GOAT has got to be Adam Vinatieri. I mean,
yeah, that's what I always thought.
And I say that for multiple reasons. Number one, Adam Vinatieri is a great, great dude. He is a good man, very, very humble, just off the charts, nice guy. And I've played against him for many years, and it's just amazing to see the things that he has done, and the mental abilities of a guy like Adam Vinatieri is just incredible. Just to have opportunities that he did on with the Patriots and winning 2 Super Bowls with kicks. It's incredible to have opportunities to begin with like that, but to pull through and make those kind of kicks in those situations it's just unbelievable. And again, he played a very long time, and he's done very, very good things. Just a great dude. Another good guy that I think it was my first experience in the NFL was John Carney. I told you earlier, great dude, and 23 years in the NFL. I mean, are you kidding me? Great guy, and form-wise, he's a little bit more old school kicker, style than I was, but Very, very controlled, very smooth. And again, another very, very level-headed guy, smart guy too, very, very good guy. I'll throw Jason Hansen in there too because he's my boy from Spokane, Washington.
There you go. And how about as far as current kickers go? Obviously, Justin Tucker is a star, right?
I would say Tucker's kind of the guy.
The kid Butker in Kansas City is good too.
Butker is very good too. That was probably another one I was going to mention as well. He's very solid.
And I'm trying to think who else has been around. Mason Crosby's been around for a long time. Some of these guys have been around for a while. Yeah. Prater.
Well, those guys that cross, you have to consider where they're playing. You got guys in Chicago, even a guy like Paul Edinger, if you remember him. He was a guy that lined up backwards. He played for the Bears for many years.
Okay.
If you go and you play in these stadiums and you see the conditions in the field, especially Chicago, their grass was like 5 inches tall. It was awful to kick out off of. But you look at the success of those guys who were there, and you're like, wow, that's pretty good for playing in Chicago and in Green Bay and even like Adam Vinatieri in New England up in the Northeast. It's those are tough places to play, and those guys have done an extremely good job during their careers. So
yeah. And then finally for ProForm Kicking, I just wanted to ask you about your business and everything. So, how does it normally work? How often are you training these guys? And kind of what is ProForm Kicking Academy all about, basically?
Well, I mean, we got a lot of, I could explain a ton, but I won't get too deep involved. But, we do a lot of private training here in Jacksonville. We'll also do some digital platform. We also have a kind of a Zoom sort of platform like we are now. But we offer, a lot of very detailed coaching with regards to the best way to kick a football. And the reason I talk about that is because, I mentioned I was 5'8", 180 pounds. Not real big, not real tall, clearly not strong, not freakishly athletic. I was a very maybe average, maybe a little bit above average, athlete. In soccer, I was on varsity, but I never was the fastest, the star of the team ever, of any team. Because of that, and because I was able to do what I did in the NFL, I attribute that to the actual form and technique, because I couldn't do that. I can't compete with the Sebastian Janikowskis of the kicking world because I'm clearly not as athletic or big or strong as he is, right?
Right.
So we teach a lot of mechanics that have to do with using 100% of the body to kick a ball. Much like we with baseball, when you're throwing your hips and rotating your hips into there, imagine if you were a baseball player at bat and you couldn't rotate your hips, and they say, oh, don't rotate your hips, just swing your arm. How far would the ball go? You would hit it very soft every time, right? So you add all the mechanics into each hit or kick in my case, but I always refer to it as like the Happy Gilmore of golfing. If Happy Gilmore can hit a driver, however far, on the show he did clearly, but running up to the ball and hitting the ball, because the reason that ball goes so far, unrealistically, obviously in the show, in the movie, but the reason he was hitting it so far because he had that forward momentum with the swing of the club. That's clearly very difficult to do, and who knows, maybe in 20 or 30 years, golfers will actually be doing that. I don't know, but that's the same thing as the kicker. The kicker runs up to the ball to kick it. Well, the kicker, put it in this way, Happy Gilmore didn't stop his momentum when he swung at the ball. He kind of kept going as he did, right? Well, with kicking, again, I can go on forever, but it's for most kids, they think it's a lateral motion, and kicking a ball laterally, turning left as a right-footed kicker would do when they kick the ball, that stops that forward momentum. And so when we have to, when we coach, we tell kids to go forward, keep going forward. But they don't understand how the ball will actually go left of you if you're swinging forward. And that's where we come in and we have to explain. And thank God I'm still able to demonstrate. And I love the fact, because the stuff that we teach these kids on day one, they got that look in their eyes like, I'm not sure if I quite believe this. I mean, you could say all you want about this stuff, but not until I see it. And I'll go out and I'll show them. And literally, I'll have them stand right behind me, not behind the ball, but behind me. And I'll swing forward. And I'm kind of flexible, so my leg might go above one of my shoulders, but it will never go to the left side of my body, which means I've swung left. So I have them stand back there so they can see if I swing left or not. And none of the kicks that I show them, I ever swing left, but yet I make every kick. Okay, so I can show you it works. It's just a matter of a lot of things that you have to kind of do on top of all that. But it's for momentum. So again, we're different than a lot of academies out there, and unfortunately, there's coaches out there that are teaching things that kids are already going to want to do anyways, or they're saying, oh, we're not going to mess with your form, we're just going to fine tune a couple little things. But a lot of the stuff we have found that these guys are teaching, the things that they're teaching, they don't mix with the stuff we're teaching. So we spend a little bit of time unteaching things that are either taught or are common sense to them. Kicking a ball soccer style, most kids think they have to turn and twist and all that. Well, you really don't. And this is all last thing I'll leave you with is the fact that with kicking, we always tell kids, like, listen, if you ever went to a camp and the coach said, we're going to teach you how to kick field goals, we're going to teach you how to kick off, and we're going to teach you how to punt. And all three of those skills are going to be almost identical motions. Would you be a little nervous? And their answer is always yes. How are you relating field goal kicking and kickoffs to punts? Because punt is clearly not the same thing. I'm like, well, watch me. It is actually.
Yeah. And real quick, is kick? What's the difference between when you kick off? I don't know anything about kicking, but what's the difference between kicking off and then kicking a field goal? What's the huge difference?
In my opinion, the only difference, the way I would teach it, is speed. You're running a little bit faster from a further distance. The only difference. Okay. Everything else is the same. Even landing on that plant foot is the same, which most guys are just like floored at. No way, that's just not possible. How are you? You can't tell me the ball will go that far if I don't land on my kicking foot. I got to land on my kicking foot. Everybody lands on their kicking foot. Well, I don't say that I never did. I clearly did at times in the NFL, but wasn't trying to, at least. But there's different things that these guys are thinking, and it's all about how they can generate power, and they think that because they're running fast and following through the way they are, it's going to make the ball go further, which can be, but you're losing control in that. So there's a lot of reasons why we teach the way we do in certain things.
No, yeah, I totally get that. What's the farthest kick you've ever kicked officially, or even in practice?
Well, officially in a game would be 59. That was in preseason in '96, so that might have been kind of the beginning of that year, of course it was, but and that was in St. Louis. So it was in a dome. That was back when the Rams were in St. Louis and in a dome preseason. So got that one under my belt. But you'll never see it because it's preseason.
Right,
so,
of course.
Which kind of a bummer. But 54 officially with the Bills actually.
Okay.
And then actually 71, just messing around. Like back when I was younger and in the Navajo Nation, which is in New Mexico, and it's like 4,000 feet of elevation. So I had that going for me. I had a nice monsoon wind behind me. I had a big fat pumpkin football. So I'm giving you all the cheat sheets here.
Right.
But I did make it. So, call it what it is, but that's my official non-game longest kick.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's crazy. Where can everybody follow your stuff and follow you on social media, just in case they want to look you up and follow what you do?
Yeah. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter all are ProForm kicking handles. I also have another Instagram handle, Mike Hollis NFL. This is my personal one, but for ProForm kicking, it's all ProForm kicking essentially.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hey, thank you very much, man. There's a lot of great information, a lot of good insight. I really appreciate your time today.
I hope you learned some.
I definitely did. That was awesome. Are you kidding me? I know nothing about kicking. Now I know everything.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Brett.
My thanks to Mike Hollis. Man, I knew nothing about kicking. I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of a mysterious thing. Everybody sees them, make kicks and miss kicks in big NFL games, and they definitely have a huge part in the success and failures of football teams. So really cool to track down Mike Hollis. Great interview. I really loved everything you had to say, all the inside stuff about kicking and the games and the mindset, all that stuff. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed that episode and got something out of that. A little change from my baseball world to the NFL. So hope you guys really enjoyed the episode. As always, as a reminder, you can follow the show at Too Tall Sports Podcast on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. And if you want to watch the show, it's on YouTube. You can find me on Amazon Music, Spotify, and of course, Apple Podcasts. Please give me a 5-star rating if you think it's 5-star. Hopefully you do. Hopefully you enjoy the content that we're putting out here. Had a great episode today, and we'll see you for another great episode next week. Thanks again, and have a great day.